The Blue Jewel.
Chapter 2. Part 3. Thank you very much, Mertani. Well, I will not mention here the betrayal of Loef to our order that was the reason for his expulsion. I want to point out that we did know that Loef was in this locality. I have to admit that although our main mission was to investigate the Towers of Oblivion, but we also had other reasons, and they were to find clues from Loef to settle old accounts. Although it was something secondary, the main thing was to visit the ruins. But it was our destination until we met his expedition for help. The audience is stunned listening to narrate the reasons for his trip. The magician paused and then continued his exposition. We knew for sure that Loef was here, since Nilam, your neighbor, had commented that he was his master when he requested his entry into one of the magic orders of Tripulia. As Loef is on the list of outlaws of the Great Council of Magic, we were made aware of this clue. We talked to Nilam and accept that he had a rudimentary and basic knowledge of magic. We did not get anything clear except that he was in Caesarea. Nilam, being an apprentice of another magic order, is free from our jurisdiction and only the Great Council can investigate him. But having no hard evidence on him, the Council cleared him of charges. Seeing Nilam's innocence, our order that he had already planned a trip to the north, he sent us to clarify this matter at once. Once the reason for his trip was exposed, the magician approached Arian to begin his interrogation. Do you know anything about the subject? Loef told you something of his secret. None that I know of. The young woman answered calmly, under the watchful eye of the council and especially Mertani. Nothing. Didn't he do anything strange in the almost 20 years he stayed in this place? Selen insisted again. No, I only have words of thanks for Loef. He took care of us and taught me everything I know. This feeling of gratitude was shared by many of the board members who also regarded Loef as a dear friend. But I do not teach you enough. Your skills against the plague have been totally ineffective. I think it is because your powers are limited and you cannot fight this kind of evil. If you say so. Arian despised the wizard. Indeed, I affirm, it was not a natural plague, dear student. This plague was due to a curse. But not only the plague. I have taken the trouble to find out, thanks to the collaboration of Mertani and other members of the council, that since Loef disappeared there have been a series of misfortunes that have not ceased to torment the town and its inhabitants. Something that you obviously had not noticed. Yes, but I think it's more of a coincidence than something Loef can be blamed for. Well, I wouldn't be so sure. In fact, I can say that Loef was expelled from our order because he found something evil that corrupts and only brings misfortune. This object must be treated properly because otherwise its consequences for those who possess it are dire, and we believe that this object is still here. The council was concerned about Selen's claims. No one liked having a cursed magic item in their population. Arian was surprised again by the wizard's claims. I'm surprised by what you're saying, Selen, replied Arian. I'm sorry to contradict you. If Loef stole that object and it cost him to be an outlaw, why abandon it now? It seems that it is an object that he has mastered, because if for 20 years that object has not caused him or us any problems, and knowing that if he abandons it he would begin to cause a malignant effect to all his friends, and that his effects would attract attention. The logical thing would be to take it with him than to leave it here. Arian's argument was quite sensible, and a majority of council members showed their approval at his words. Selen realized that he was losing the support of the council. The wizard was nervous, his words showed some anger. I don't care why. To me it is evident that the object is still here, and to save us problems my companion Darius and some men sent by the council have gone to search your house, where Loef also lived. Selen could not hide a smile of victory then. The interrogation had been a ploy to get her away from her house so that she could search her quietly. This ruse devised by Selen as well as Mertani outraged her in such a way that she jumped up and stared into Selen's eyes, spoke with a serious tone. Then if you excuse me, I will go to my house to see what these men do. Selin and Matani kept the gesture serious at the young woman's resolution, but she did not wait for Matani's permission to leave the room. Everyone present remained silent, impressed by the young woman's determination. Matani then closed the council meeting. The members of the council slowly left the room, but only 2 men resisted leaving, or rather waited for everyone else to disappear to talk quietly. Those 2 men were Selin and Matani. She doesn't seem to know anything, Selin. Matani said frankly, as he had a great appreciation for Arian. That seems, dear friend. Let's hope Darius finds the object in his log. That the gods are propitious, but I believe that there is a place where that object can be easily hidden. Where? There is to the north near here, on the outskirts, are ruins of a castle that are a little hidden. There Loef spent whole seasons meditating, searching. If somewhere he hid the jewel, it should be in that place. Perhaps, then my partner and I should go and have a look tonight, just in case he is hiding there. I recommend it. Do you want someone to accompany you? No thanks, it's better that we finish this topic without help. Arian returned to his house. He found no one inside it, but the traces of the presence of unwanted guests were quite evident. Since everything was messy and scrambled. The closets wide open with all the clothes lying on the floor, all the drawers and the huge chest, which was one of the few things Arian had as a souvenir of his parents. All his belongings were lying on the floor. Even all the paintings that she had bought from some artist who ventured from time to time through Caesarea were torn. They had looked for something inside the canvas. Your favorite books totally destroyed with torn pages. The pillows of the whole house were torn to pieces. He carefully observed his lying on the floor. It had accompanied him all his life for as long as he could remember. Now it lay shattered on the floor. This scene caused him pain, but not physical. It was a more bitter and deep feeling. Seeing his whole house destroyed had made a very deep wound in his soul, in that area where wounds take time to heal and never heal completely. I saw them, Arian. It was Liana who was standing by the door. I came to look for you for a walk, and some men from the village arrived with one of the magicians. They went inside the house and started throwing everything away. Arian walked over and hugged the little girl. You know, the way my house is. It seems to me that you are going to have to let me sleep in yours. Of course, if Arian, so you will tell me some of the stories you know. I'll tell you all the stories you want. It was already getting dark and there was no news of Matani, the council or the magicians. She assumed that for the moment they would leave her alone, and in Liana's house she was safer. The 2 were talking while watching the stars come out of the window that was facing north. They could observe the road whose destination was the great mountains where it was lost among lush forests and eternal snows. They perceived to their surprise how 2 shadows advanced along the road under the dim light of a lantern. Look, Arian, aren't they wizards? Said the little girl, pointing with her finger to that point that was moving in the distance. Arian fixed his eyes to where the girl pointed and frowned. It's a very rare thing. That road is not the one that goes to the temple, commented the girl with innocence. Temple? How do you know the ruins are of a temple? Liana was surprised by Arian's reaction. The girl was not unaware that the information she knew was quite relevant to the young lady. Some time ago my mother and I used to go around that area to pick mushrooms. They grow well under the shade of those stones. One day we found Loef seemed very concentrated looking at some of the rocks, although worn they showed some drawings. I walked over and asked him what he was doing. Loef smiled at me and asked me what I knew about the place. I replied what my mother had told me, but it was a great castle of which now only the tower of the council remains. Loef started laughing at me. He told me that all the people of Caesarea were wrong. They were not the ruins of a castle. The place was a temple, dedicated to a powerful god, but now no longer existed. He gave me a honey candy and disappeared among the rocks. Arian stared at Liana, then put on his worn boots and a thick cloak to protect himself from the cold. Liana was shocked at Arian's reaction to her words. "Where are you going?" "I'm going to see what magicians do." "Quiet, tomorrow I'll be by your side." "Arian, I think it's the last time I'll see you for a long time." The girl's tone was saddened. "Me too, Liana, I have that impression." "Me too." When she finished speaking, Arian gave the little girl a delicate kiss on the forehead. Then he stroked her soft blonde hair with his hand, while whispering a lullaby in her ear, until the little girl fell totally asleep, leaving her in bed. So the young woman left the girl's house and went quietly to the ruins. She knew the way by heart by the countless times they went to that place in search of medicinal plants that grew among the ruins. Only in the dim light of the white moon could she easily follow the path. The blue moon was much more timid. After an hour of walking he reached the height of the ruins. He was at the bottom of a small valley of the mountains that guarded Caesarea to the north. The ruins suggested that there must have been a huge construction in that place. Despite being a fairly protected area with a mild climate in any season, fertile land, but nobody dared to live here. It was believed that the place was cursed. Only Loef along with his two protégés and some daring inhabitants of Caesarea frequented the area since they were very good at some mushrooms very appreciated culinarily, and also plants and flowers with medicinal properties. It was not difficult for him to observe the fire since the two magicians had made a bonfire, under the shelter of a huge granite rock, with which to warm themselves during the cold night while laughing a little and chatting animatedly. He hid among the bushes that grew on the hillside. There he could observe them safely and thanks to the acoustics of the valley also hear them perfectly. They were relaxed and shared a bottle. "We were definitely right, this is the place. The downside is that idiot from Loef has gone ahead of us again." That voice resembled Selen's, but with a slightly more cheerful tone, no doubt the result of the liquid they drank. "You are right. The symbols leave no room for doubt and nobody from this miserable little village knows anything. That bastard escaped with the jewel." Darius' voice had a relaxed tone without that rage he showed when talking to Arian. The two wizards were relaxed, they could speak frankly since no one could hear them. Then Selen sat up from where he was sitting and took a fairly full bag that he had hidden inside a backpack and showed it to his companion. With a serious gesture he spoke with a lower tone of voice. "Yes, but let's finish our plan first. Remove the mantissa leaves before anyone discovers us." Darius shook his head with an affirmative gesture and he too was about to grab something from his stool bag, but his gesture of tranquility changed to another of surprise. He became nervous and searched through the backpack and his robe compulsively palpating nervously. "Troll shit. I have forgotten the scrolls of Nortal in the village. Without them I cannot translate the symbols of the main rock." Selen however remained calm and drank some from the bottle. "Okay, calm down, go back to Caesarea and while I'll stay burning this." Arian could watch as Darius hurriedly returned to Caesarea while Selen was left alone. The magician lay down again in front of the bonfire, threw the bag into the fire and watched as the bag was consumed in the flames, while taking a few sips from the bottle, placidly tasting each drink. Arian decided to approach little by little to see what exactly the magicians burned, but he wanted the bad luck that being aware of what Selen was doing he did not pay adequate attention where he stepped. He supported his right foot badly and slipped on a rock full of moss causing him to fall downhill. The noise of the fall immediately alerted Selen who sat up alarmed. Arian was on his knees recovering from the fall. When he raised his head his gaze met the figure of Selen watching her intently. Their gazes met, the wizard moved with great agility and reached the height of Arian. He picked up the young woman but did not let go and began to shake her hard. "What are you doing here, girl?" Arian was paralyzed. She didn't know what to answer the wizard, as she assumed that her visit to this place was something that Selen did not like. I know that the flower of Mantissa, boiled and diluted, is very toxic, produces fevers, cough, dizziness. Symptoms very similar to that of the plague. Surely, and I do not know how you polluted the water. Not even the most expert doctor or healer would think that the cause is the extracts of that plant. It was all a deception of yours. Selene was surprised, but Arian too had not been nervous as in the interrogation, and with just a few sentences had put the magician in check. The magician let go. On his face there was a gesture of admiration towards the young woman. He gave a small smile. Brilliant, Loef taught you well, too well. You are the greatest talent I have seen in years. You possess a talent in the healing arts such that we had to increase the dose of Mantissa to cause a serious epidemic. Unfortunately, this caused some of the weakest to die. Arian looked at Selene with hatred, remembered the death of Liena's mother. You are despicable. What are you looking for? Surely you already know, a simple jewel, like a pearl. It emits a small bluish glow just like Arian, the blue moon. I've never seen it. Selene's face hardened. Lie. I know. I can read your mind. You are surprised, girl. It is not a small bluff. I have cast a spell that allows me to read your thoughts. It is dangerous to invoke it when there are many people around. You can go crazy, but here we are alone, you and me. Arian thought the magician was lying, but maybe what he said was true. Now I understand everything. Loef did not leave the jewel here. It was too dangerous. Sooner or later he knew we would come looking for it. Neither does he have it since he is too old to have something so valuable. Your brother Nilam has it. Arian broke down. Now everything was lost. No. He doesn't have it. Loef gave it to the nomads of the free lands. The wizard separated from Arian and started laughing. Loef is very cunning. He has put the jewel right in front of our very noses, and we as fools have sought it all over the world. How could we think that such a mediocre apprentice had in his possession such a powerful object? It is a plan that is not his own, but great without a doubt. What are you going to do to Nilam? Once discovered, the game of Loef will be simple. Tomorrow we will leave at dawn to Tripulia. We will find your brother. We will accuse him of necromancy. So the council will not stick its nose in our affairs. Once arrested, he will give us the jewel and will be executed. Later we will see to it that Loef also receives his punishment. Never. Sorry, you can't do anything. Right now you're going to die. Selene closed her eyes, began to recite unintelligible words that Arian could not understand, was casting a spell towards her. In a few seconds the wizard would throw a ball of fire or a ray of hell that would reduce her to ashes. Arian had to do something. He was guided by his instinct. With great speed he picked up a stone from the ground and threw it at the head of the magician with all his strength. Selene didn't expect Arian's attack. He had confided. He received the impact of the stone on his temple. The magician fell to the ground violently, and his head hit a rock. Arian was surprised by the effectiveness of his improvised attack, approached where Selene lay, examined the wizard. The second blow was deadly. As an expert it did not take long to confirm Selene's death. He was in a mess, looking for something to justify his action. There were only a few ashes left of the sack that contained the leaves of Mantissa, his only proof of the conspiracy. No one would believe her. Everyone would think that she had killed Selene to protect Loef. The council would condemn her to death, or they would hand her over to the white robes. He had to act quickly. As well as he could hide the corpse in some bushes at the bottom of a ravine. He hurriedly covered the blood stains with dirt and put out the fire. This would gain time. Hopefully Darius would not discover the corpse until the next morning, and until the afternoon they would not notice its absence. One day ahead, he ran to his house that was not far from the ruins, and among the disorder that reigned inside, Arian managed to gather everything he thought indispensable to make a long trip. His brother was in danger. He had to travel to Tripulia to warn him of the danger in which he was for having the jewel. His secret was safe with Selen's death. It was a plan, there was no time to doubt. If she stayed, the most sure thing is that everything would end, since they would never believe her. If Loef gave the jewel to Nilam, it would be for some reason, so he had to help his brother. She could not go straight to Tame, she would be easy prey for her pursuers. He decided to go north. Hopefully he knew a little about the terrain. He had already reached the gates of the Elf Kingdom, then he would have to go west and reach the lands of the nomads of the steppes. There he could travel south to Tame, camouflaged between them. Evidently there were dangers: wolves, bears, trolls, bandits. They also said that the elves could bewitch you and make you sleep a century, the weather, hunger, snow. But all that was better than staying and being at the mercy of white ropes. She sighed and determined began to walk, followed the path that Loef had taught her, and that was none of the main ones. It was the one they used to reach the kingdom of the elves. An abandoned road that connected Caesarea with Bursary. He reached a hill, from there the road went into the forests of the north. He turned for a moment, the dawn began, from there he could see Caesarea beautiful. Doris must still be looking for Selen with luck. She observed the port where the boats awaited the fishermen. The great council tower dominating the entire population seemed to be bidding her farewell. I get to see the house of little Liana. What would become of her now? She would be safe. I could not take her with her. If there was anything in Caesarea, they were good people. Then he looked at his house, on the outskirts, next to the west road. He had been so happy. He couldn't wait. He turned around with his face full of tears and started walking. The horizon was dark. The sun's rays had not reached the forest. As soon as she entered the interior, she found herself much more animated and confident. She had lifted a weight off her shoulders. Now she was responsible only for her fate. She did not have to content Matani or resign herself to being a simple apprentice. He was now free, even though he was aware that his life was in danger. But he didn't really care. He could finally see the world and reunite with his brother, which was what he wanted most.